Welcome to another Sunday night and another glorious episode of Basketbros. I am your moderator, Denzel Snipes, and let me tell you something. It has been a wild 7 days. We did the NCAA March Madness episode of Basketbros, and then it just seems like everything just hit the ceiling. Two number ones go down. Marquette, a number two, is looking at going down right now. Meanwhile, the Longhorns are still in it. Houston Cougars had to come from behind to stay alive. And yeah, it's just been very interesting thus far. It's like no heavyweight is safe. It's crazy. But we got a loaded show for you. So let's go ahead and get the fellas in here all the way in Charlotte, North Carolina by way of Connecticut. He's fighting the cold tonight, but he felt well enough to hop on. So big shouts to him. DJ Willie V, our resident DJ, who's also not really a DJ. That's just a name. But I'm pretty sure if you gave him a turntable, he can create something, nice for you. Willie Vogel, come on in. What's up, man?
Not much. Yeah, I'm finding a little cold, but yeah, it's better than it was yesterday. It's just bad allergies, and it was all in the throat yesterday, but now it's just all up here. But hey, you know what? As long as I can talk, I can be on a show.
Hey, awesome, man. And as we speak, Cretan is currently up on beta right now. Look at that.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been interesting. And then all the way in Atlanta, Georgia, by way of Quincy, Illinois, is Jacob Christner, the architect of the Pundit, which you can see on Wednesday nights, and your boy is on there too. And he's also the architect of Pundit Views, which is every Monday night. Jacob Christner, how's it going, brother?
What's going on? I'm just a little sad because I thought for a moment I could match 2015 and get all four in the Final Four to win a title. Well, maybe I can still get a title somewhere. Maybe I can get the title. Who knows? But it's like I'm just never that good at this thing. It's like I have one of those in like 25 years. There's people that get once in a blue moon get perfect brackets. So I just want to know how.
Hey, misery loves company. Guess what? There are no perfect brackets in the nation pretty much for the last, 6 days. Yeah. But yeah, it's been it's definitely been crazy. I can't even recall the last year that there was an actual perfect bracket. That was like what, maybe 4 or 5 years ago?
It definitely wasn't. It definitely wasn't with UMBC.
No, definitely was not, and definitely not with Fairleigh Dickinson. No. Who's actually going to play Florida Atlantic, and I'm actually looking forward to that game.
It's coming up in about Fairly Odd Parents.
Huh?
I call them the Fairly Odd Parents, if anybody gets that reference.
Yeah, pretty much. Before we get started, if everyone would direct their eyes to the bottom of the screen, to the bottom ticker, you can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as LinkedIn and DNB TV. We are more than just this show. So hit the like for this episode, but also hit the subscribe button to Sideline Sports. We got Basketbros, which of course you're watching right now. We got the Pundit Views, as mentioned just a few minutes ago. We've got the Gauntlet, Sports Arena, Sideline Sports Show, Troy and Gary, Cold Hard Truth, Unfiltered Truth, Ball Don't Lie, you name it, we got it. It's a plethora of shows, and it's all here on the Sideline Sports Network. We've been fortunate to cover a number of events in the year that we've been alive. We've covered 2 Super Bowls, WNBA Draft, NFL Scouting Combine, you name it. NFL Hall of Fame, we are there. So we're everywhere like clouds in the sky on a Sunday afternoon. So be sure and subscribe to Sideline Sports. And as we speak, down goes Marquette. So but there's no perfect brackets in the nation anyway. Let's get on to our first topic, and that is, and we probably should have covered this man earlier because we definitely covered undoubtedly his biggest highlight, and that is John Havlicek. And I'm waiting on Jacob Christner, the resident Celtics fan, to go in on this one. But who is he? He was born in Jupiter, Florida, on 25 April, that's the date. On 8 April 1940. He came out of Ohio State. He was a 7th overall pick in the 1962 NBA draft. He played all of his years with the Boston Celtics. Here are his highlights. 8-time NBA champion. Finals MVP in 1974. 13-time NBA All-Star. 4-time All-NBA first team. 7-time All-NBA second team. 5-time NBA All-Defensive first team. 3-time NBA All-Defensive second team. NBA All-Rookie First Team 1963. He's on the 35th, 50th, and 75th All-Anniversary teams. Boston Celtics number 17 retired. He also in college was an NCAA champion. He's a national champion in 1960. Consensus second team All-American in 1962. Third team All-American in 1961. Ohio State Buckeyes number 5 retired. His career averages 20.8 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, 4.8 assists per game. He's in both Hall of Fames, college and pro. Small forward standing in about 6'5". So, John Havlicek goes down in Celtics lore. And see, whenever you bring up John Havlicek, it's always a kind of a struggle, because if someone were to say, like, well, who are your top 5 or Celtics of all time? You got guys like Parrish and Bird and McHale and Bill Russell and all of them, But Havlicek has the resume to be a standing top 5 no matter what era. You look at it, and the resume speaks for itself. He won 8 rings. He's a 13-time NBA All-Star. That alone should give him a top 5 mainstay, should put him in the Mount Rushmore of Boston Celtics all time. But then, of course, there's the moment that Havlicek stole the ball that sealed the NBA final. And, Jacob, I know you're seething at the –
I look seething, don't I? I'll tell you.
Yeah. But start off with Will, your thoughts on John Havlicek.
What a great player. Yeah. Definitely one of the best Celtics of all time. Along with Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Robert Parrish. You named them. There's more. Dennis Johnson. I read some cool things about him. He actually grew up being childhood friends with Phil Niekro, who later pitched in the major leagues. He
and also on the Houston Astros,
Yep. He also went to the same college as Jerry Lucas, Bobby Knight, and Larry Siegfried. They all won the national championship that year when they were in college at Ohio State. So look at that. Jerry Lucas makes the NBA. Bobby Knight's a Hall of Fame coach. He was also drafted in the NFL by the Cleveland Browns. And in 16 years, like you said, he won 8 championships. And he's one of 4 players to win 8 championships. And also one of 3 guys to go 8-0 in the NBA Finals. So, one of 4 and one of 3. That is like a VIP club membership. Like, you need a card to get in. Like, that is a huge, huge accomplishment. But yeah, that definitely one of the greatest Celtics players of all time. Definitely one of the greatest NBA players who, unfortunately, guys in the past talk about him, but no one nowadays really brings him up, because there's other guys they talk about who played during Havlicek's era, but they don't shine the light on Havlicek because he was a 6-man. But still, one of the greatest NBA resumes of all time.
Yes, absolutely. And not to mention, his clutch steal in the closing seconds of the 65 Eastern Conference Finals. That, of course, sealed the victory, and they went on to win the NBA championship that season. Want to swing it over to Jacob here, and I just thought of something. And we throw a lot of hypotheticals on this show, right? Could you imagine a time switch and you put Larry Bird with John Havlicek? How that would go?
You got to remember, Bird missed him by 1 year. He left in 70. Bird's out in 79. So Bird could have had Maravich, Havlicek, and himself as the top 3 in their final years.
Man, that would have been scary.
That would have been sick. That would have been absolutely sick, even in Havlicek's final year. But think about this part for a second. What is it with the Celtics and historic hustle and historic steals? You get John Havlicek, you get Larry Bird, especially with the hustles and everything, and then Ray Rondo. Keep going the eras; it's the same thing. You look at all the hustle and going under the. Going completely, going under the legs, going all that to just go out. I mean, maybe it's just Boston. Maybe it's just that Boston hustle that you feel like if you automatically went there. Maybe it's why LeBron doesn't want to be in Boston, because he'd have to hustle. No, but the thing about Havlicek, though, is people will not give him a chance. And I'll say this, Jay, they won't give him a chance because you got to remember this is an era where people will say, "Oh my God, they played with plumbers. Oh, they played against the truck drivers. Oh my God, it's like." And then I watch everything. Every type of game. You got to remember, especially during COVID, I watch all the stuff. And I watch everything. I'll watch from the 60s and 70s and everything. Those are two-hand set shots and chest passes. Very few even bounce passes. You know what I mean? You had Bob Cousy, but then, like I said, you don't, unless you got Pete Maravich, you really didn't have a whole lot of flash. And so people don't, especially in this era of wanting flash.
Yeah.
That it's like sometimes they don't even want their team to win unless they have something flashy. I know who. You know who I'm talking about as far as football. They don't want that. So they will root against their own team if it doesn't look flashy enough. So why would they watch John Havlicek? But John Havlicek's one of the greatest of all time. And he is the small forward version of Kevin McHale of his time. He played a lot of six-man too.
Mm-hmm.
He'd also right in there for rebounds. He was 6'5", McHale's 6'10", but he did a lot of six-man work. He did a lot of work. He did a lot. I mean, I think he might have started more than McHale. McHale only had 400 career starts.
Yeah.
So he might have done that, but he did it all in that league. But people will say just because there was chest passes, there was very few bounce passes, very few flash, other than some exceptions. They're going to say, oh, they just played with truck drivers. But yeah, remember, he also got, as you said, drafted by the Cleveland Browns. So this is an athlete.
Yes, absolutely. And
so real quickly, just imagine if you give them the training and the nutrition and everything of now.
That's true. That is true.
And those are what I'm talking about. When people say that, they're saying it. I call it the emotional nitwit. They're saying it out of the emotional nitwit. That is, they're looking at the now and what they see in front of them, but they're not thinking. They're not going anywhere deep in their thoughts. It's like they don't like John Havlicek wouldn't be, and eventually if he got Danny Ainge even he got drafted by three sports. Yeah. So you're telling me you don't give them that kind of? You're telling me that if beer is not their training regimen and they actually have an actual training regimen, they wouldn't be just as awesome.
Exactly.
Got to remember that Luka Doncic is not even that considered that big of an athlete, and he blows away anybody in the 80s. It's just because of the training.
And that right there is a great point, because we all know how Michael Jordan had to go in the gym and put on some muscle just to compete with the Detroit Pistons. Could you imagine if Jordan had today's training?
Oh my God! For one thing, you got to remember Magic Johnson got into just because his joints were getting pretty bad and he needed the muscle around him. He went up to about 260 pounds in his comeback. Mm-hmm. Because his main thing was he needed muscle around him because his knees were already bum. So he went into powerlifting mode. Yeah. So he went into powerlifter mode and just got some extra weight. That wasn't fat. That was just a big. He still did his big. So those are the things. It's like Michael Jordan might have had to have done the same thing. He wouldn't be able to fly, but he wouldn't be able to fly the same. But good Lord, then again, who knows? Because LeBron flies the same. He's 260.
And he's 260 exactly. Then you look at Havlicek, right? Now he measured in at 6'5", 203. Now keep in mind during that time period, the 1960s, 203 pounds was a huge dude.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. He was considered a huge dude, you know. And even at 6'5", would you say he's an undersized small forward? Yeah,
absolutely he is. Because like I said, he's a small forward version of Kevin McHale, because he did a lot of the same stuff McHale did, and some of the moves you get underneath the basket. And also six-man work, a lot of six-man work too.
Yeah, and averaging 20 a game as a six-man. As a six-man. Yeah. That just tells you just how nasty not only he was, but that team was, you know?
Well, he was clutch. It's like, that's the thing about Boston I respect about Boston, is they have a standard. Remember, I bring up all the time about my Bears. I want a standard. Celtics, even when they're bad, they have a standard. Their team, there's fans have a standard. Mm-hmm. They want to be that good all the time, and it's like Havlicek. I mean, you went. Over and over when it came to clutch, you went over and over. You had Havlicek, then you get Bird, you get Pierce, you get. Over and over again. Jason Tatum now. A lot of clutch. There's a lot of clutch ball in the last 3 or 4 generations.
Yeah,
and that's just like I said. Boston, even if they're bad, even if Boston's bad. Remember in the '90s, they didn't have some good times after Bird left. But that crowd has standards, legitimate winning standards, not flash standards. If it's flash, it's okay, cool. But they have winning standards.
Quick question for Will. Seeing as, and granted, that's just, what Jacob answered. Someone else may feel different. But let's say, for example, hypothetically speaking, you feel he's an undersized small forward. Would you keep him at small forward or would you move him to the 2?
I'd move him to the 2.
So shooting guard? You put him at shooting guard? Okay.
I'd put him in for shooting guard.
He's averaging 20 a game off the bench. Just imagine what he averages as a starter.
I think he'd be a 2-way player as a shooting guard.
Yeah, he could. And actually, the positions can be interchangeable. Now, last question for Jacob. He averaged 20 coming off the bench. If he was a full-time starter, what do you think his average is?
25. 25. That's 5 more points a game. That's amazing for its time. 25, 26. Got to remember also that he could pass the ball. He could rebound. He could fight in there with everybody. He could steal the ball. We already know that's the most famous one. He could do defense. He could do it all. I don't know if I'd move him to a 2 because of that reason alone. He could do just about everything. Right. He was just a really, really good athlete. So I don't know if I move him to a 2 because I think we lose about 3 or 4 rebounds. And that 2s now can go.
That is a true point.
Huh?
I said, even though I said he'd be a 2, that's a true point. He would lose a lot of rebounds per game.
Yeah, and see, during that time, you're right. But it's like, and during that time, now you can go get Steph, which we debate all the time. Steph is basically a hybrid guard of his own anyway. We don't even call him a real point guard. But you got to remember, Steph goes underneath the basket against 7-footers. They weren't allowed to do that with the coaches at that time.
No,
rebounds outside of anything that bounced over to him.
Exactly. If you were a wing player, you hug the wing. If you're down low, you're down low. It's not nowhere near, what it is right now. And I get it. You probably are losing 2-3 rebounds a game. My only other, question would be, well, that's going to be dependent upon who's at the 4 and the 5 to go and come down with those rebounds,
Well, but time was Bill Russell.
So with that being said, could you afford to move him to the 2?
Well, we got to remember, but at certain times, Bill Russell was starting to get old. You got to remember, 69 was it. He was already a player coach. That was it. His knee shot, and it's like, and Bill knew when to go.
Yeah, he knew when to exit.
Oh, and he knew when to go. And that's another thing with Celtics. There are Celtics. Pierce knew when to go. There was certain. That's another thing with them. They just kind of knew when to go. There are certain players that did. Kuzi knew when to go. Bill Russell knew when to go. Bird knew when to go. Pierce went to a different team, but I'm just talking about a lot of.
Yeah, let's just say the non-Celtics part of Pierce's career doesn't exist. In my eyes, it doesn't exist.
I said Pierce left though. But I was saying Pierce left, but it's like I think Pierce left at the right time. There are specific things with this that it's like, there's one thing about that Celtics team. Maybe we don't have Boston Garden anymore, but there's still an aura. It's like a lot of them knew when to go. It's because you got to remember there's a lot of athletes that did not know when to go. Ric Flair. It's like they don't know when to go, and sometimes it's the greatest when you can leave when the crowd doesn't want you to.
Yeah, they want to remember you for who you were and not who you are like right now. It's not like when Jordan went to the Wizards; he actually was still putting up 20 a game. You know,
Yeah.
now by Jordan standards, he's a shell of himself. But 20 a game is no slouch, you know. But when you are a legit shell of yourself and you go from, you know, in your prime, you were averaging like 28, 29, and now you're averaging like 6, you know. So, I mean, this is a genuine question for the Carmelos out there, you know. Is it time to go? It's a genuine question for, you know, pretty much anyone who came out of 03. Like, you know, you look at Chris Bosh, right? Now, Bosh attempted a comeback, but was it really time for him to go?
Yeah.
No, he had health problems, though, too.
Yeah, he did.
He had health problems, so he kind of needed to.
Yep, very true also. Very, very, very true. You know what? With that being said, one could say that he actually left in his prime. So Bosh probably left too soon. I understand why he did, but you take away the health problems, he definitely plays how many more years?
5, 6.
5 or 6? Yeah, I'm thinking 5.
It just depends. I mean, you got to remember, LeBron has also probably given some unrealistic times to a lot of players. He gives about $1 million a year for his training.
Yeah,
you know, to his body like he does. And mind you, we make fun of the fact that he got his record, and then he took off saying, "Oh, I've got a bad foot." Then he went dancing, and then I'm not close to coming back, which he would have been close to coming back if he would have beaten Houston. If they would have beaten Houston, he'd been close. And that's the thing. And if they would have beaten Dallas, he'd been closer. And guess what? That's what happens with people that are getting older. They got the control. They've got everything. That's Tom Brady too.
Mm-hmm.
That's Tom Brady. Like Tom Brady, Tom Brady says he's done. He's done. That's whatever. But I mean, he also gives himself the power to not want to do another training camp. He's done 20 some odd of them.
That's true. You know what? In truth, when Brett Favre walked away, he was like, physically, I can do it. It's just the team meetings and the training camp. Most of the team meetings, he was like, I don't want to do it anymore. And you know what? Say what you will about Tom Brady, you know, at the time that he left, but keep in mind, number one, he still had a fastball at 45 years old. And number two, he won a passing title like the year before. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, he's a freak of nature, but you got to realize the ones that say they don't like team, this is how you can tell that there are people that do not want to coach, that there are players that don't want to coach. This is how you can tell. They say they can't stand team meetings. Not going to say that everybody would like team meetings, but the ones that really pay attention are the next coaches.
Yeah.
Like I bring this up with, I brought this up with, I think last week or so with one of our other shows, we brought up the whole idea of Trubisky. The whole thing with him is he was helping out, even though when he was kind of screwed out of Pittsburgh, out of his starting job, he helped Pickett this year. He helped Pickett and got him in, and Pickett got that much better. How much farther until he's a coach? How much farther until he might be finished and become a coach early? If Pickett gives him a shot, if Pickett says that he is one of the reasons and they helped on the field and he's a teacher, how much more until that point? You know what I'm saying? And that's the same with everybody else's. I mean, we already know LeBron's not going to coach, obviously, his own team player, because if they don't want to go to camp, if they don't want to do all this, then you don't want to be sitting into these things and teaching, because you can, as a veteran, you could be teaching. You could be you could do that.
Well, it's a little more than that also, because you could be sick of the team meetings and whatnot, and that's just you as a player. As a coach, you're actually organizing and conducting these meetings. And they're like, hell no, I don't want to do with that. But interesting you say that, because what are the odds in the next 10 years that Mitchell Trubisky is a quarterback's coach or an offensive coordinator?
Oh, but 3 or 4 years. 3 or 4. No, because what happened was I literally watched an interview with Mike Tomlin, and he admitted at the end of this year they're talking about this, and they said we got Mitch Trubisky because it kept us away from a situation where we didn't have to do anything stupid. If they did not get Pickett. So the idea of it was, so Mitch obviously already knew. So it was like, the idea of it was to keep us, because they knew he was already a starter, that he could win a few games. He could do his job on that thing. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer, but he could win games and get all that. So they had an idea. But he already knew that, so he already knew it, and he embraced it. And he actually helped out Pickett. So 10 years, forget it. 3 or 4 years. I think he's on the Kellen Moore level.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, Pickett had his highlights last year. I enjoyed watching them. But the truth is he should have sat a year because the Steelers ended 9-8. Trubisky would have gotten you the same record.
Yeah. Except it wouldn't have been the comeback. It would have just been up, down, up, down, up, down. You know what I mean? It's just like that's what he's always been. But
3-game losing skid, 5-game winning streak. What
it would be, and it would just. But that was the point I'm saying. You're saying 10 years. I say 3 to 4. I think he's getting ready.
Yeah, he may be
Hall of Famer, but you can be known somewhere else, you know?
Yeah, you can. This is a good time to switch over to our next topic, and that is our Basketbros Moment in Time. The 1977 NBA Finals, Game 6. Bill Walton detonates for 20 points, 23 rebounds, 8 blocks, and 7 assists en route to a series-clinching 109-107 victory over the Philadelphia 76ers. This NBA Finals, and this night in particular, actually was, and this is a little bit of a did you know, this was the final appearance of the Walter A. Brown Trophy, the previous trophy that was awarded to the NBA champion. And it was after this game that they were actually awarded both trophies. So they were the last to receive the Walter A. Brown and the first to receive the current Larry A. Brown Trophy. Walton was named Finals Most Valuable Player.
Larry A. Brown?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Larry O'Brien. Larry O'Brien. I'm sorry, Larry O'Brien Trophy. Let's see. Walton won a Finals Most Valuable Player. He was called an inspiration by Julius Erving himself. Maurice Lucas later said of Walton's post-game thrown jersey that was sent into the crowd of fans, "If I had caught the shirt, I would have eaten it. Bill's my hero." You talk about a shining moment, and with Bill Walton, you know, like, this is a guy, I'm going to go real quick to his career. Hang on. Okay, Bill Walton.
I love that guy as a commentator. He's so fun.
Yes, he's excellent. He is excellent as a commentator. You know,
I'm glad he didn't apologize for calling them midgets.
Oh.
I'm glad he didn't apologize.
Right, this guy. I mean, he's in both Hall of Fames as in college and pro. You know, he won. Oh, he also won with the Celtics. Look at that. But that was the tail end of his career. But you know, year 3, and you win the finals. Win Finals Most Valuable Player, and you put up that stat line on the way out of the series. You know. This is going to bring tears of joy to the eyes of, you know, Portland Trailblazer fans, wondering when can we ever experience this again, because they've had the Lillards come through, the Brandon Roys, the LeBron's dad, Odom. You know, you've had all of them come through here, and this is like, man, they just can't seem to get over the top. Pippen's been on the team. Arvydas Sabonis, like, you name it, right? Damon Stoudemire. But this particular performance, this is the performance that I think everyone should strive for to close out a series. The man was the whole team that night. Puts up a double-double, 23 rebounds. Come on, man. You know, 8 blocks, 7 assists. Like, Walton was a man of fire that night. He was a house of fire. So, Will, on to you, man. Your thoughts about this particular performance and overall Bill Walton as a player.
Jay, you know what I call this? I call it 2K numbers when you're a 99 overall and you can do everything.
It's
like,
crazy.
But about Bill Walton, he led the team playoffs with 288 rebounds. He also led the playoffs with assists, ironically. This is the first title, and it was also the first playoff appearance for Portland. Same year they win the title. It was their first playoff appearance. They were also 10-0 at home in the playoffs. And it was the second team in finals history to overcome a 2-0 deficit. And Bill Walton, as a player, he was a great player for UCLA. He played under John Wooden. If you hear him commentate, he's a little off-wall. He's a fun commentator. He always credits John Wooden for helping him succeed in life and, like, learning about life and basketball and other things. So, I wouldn't say Bill Walton's one of the greatest players in NBA history, but definitely a good player in NBA history, in my opinion. Also, those numbers are like that looks like what Shaq would do in the 90s. Like Shaq would do 20 years later, be like, oh, I'm going to drop 20-something points and 20-something rebounds and 8 blocks. Like, those look like Shaq numbers. And and it's sad because you look at other NBA Finals moments. We've talked about so many different NBA Finals moments, and this is one that's completely, I mean, completely overlooked as for being one of the best.
Yes.
Like we
I
talk
totally
about
agree.
the Jordan ones, we talk about the Celtics ones, we talk about the Pistons, the Lakers. This one is so overlooked, it's insane. And that kind of stat line is just, you would think that this would be like a combined 2 games,
Yeah.
but it's not. It was 1 game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Great point that it gets overlooked because it's the Trailblazers, because it's not a Detroit, it's not a Lakers, it's not a Celtics, it's not a Bulls, or even a Rockets, because it's the Trailblazers, you know what I mean? But this stat line and this game should not be overlooked. They were the first team to receive the Larry O'Brien trophy. I mean, come on now, But interesting you bring Shaq into this. So I'm going to swing it down to Jacob. Before you give your commentary on your overall thoughts about this moment and, Bill Walton as a player, take 77 Bill Walton and put him up against 1994 Shaquille O'Neal. Thoughts about that?
Well, it would be very different. It would be absolutely like putting Arvydas Sabonis against Shaq.
Which really happened.
Because you've got to realize the reason I say something like this, Arvydas Sabonis was an absolute thinking player. He just gained some weight. But he was the thinking player. He was the passer. He was all that. But you got to remember, Bill Walton, every time they went into New York those 6 times a year, he went into Central Park and faced everybody in chess. He actually taught most of the team how to play chess. He's an incredible intellectual, high-end reader, all that kind of stuff like that. He just did something completely different. It would have been very, very interesting. It would have been just like Sabonis. And, it would be like Sabonis. And only the difference is Shaq would have overpowered him. It's hard to overpower 325 pounds.
True.
But at the same time, they're the same passer. He and Sabonis are the same passer. They were the same, the same kind of rebounder. They had all that kind of stuff and knew the position. They were very smart players. But remember this part too. Bill Walton also had the 21 for 22 finals game for 44 points in the NCAA tournament. So he has that on him too. But I also think every time I think about Bill Walton and especially the 86 Celtics, I think just how unlucky they were that he got hurt.
Yeah.
He gets hurt. Let's just go to a reverse universe for a second, okay? A reverse time. Let's just imagine Bill Walton plays till 90, doesn't get hurt, and he plays till 90. Because remember, he was only till like 75, so he could have played 15 years.
He could have, yes.
Yes. It's like, wait, what if he plays till 90? Len Bias is alive. Len Bias is alive, and Reggie Lewis.
Yep.
And Kevin McHale does not break his foot.
Which ultimately spelled it, yeah.
All of those happened all the time. The whole thing, remember, the first thing was Len Bias got hurt, died. Then Len Bias died. Then Bill Walton gets hurt. Then during playoffs, Kevin McHale gets hurt, and he played anyway. But he still hasn't walked the same from it. Then years later, Reggie Lewis dies. Just imagine all those things at the same time going on. They might have had 2 or 3 more rings. They might have delayed the Bulls titles.
Wow.
They might have delayed it because it's like Bird probably plays less, but he would have played. That's the leader. And then Reggie Lewis is there. Bill Walton is on the bench along with Bird. Then there's Len Bias.
Right.
So they would have been that would have been and then You got to remember the minute that Len Bias would have been coming into his prime, Dennis Johnson would have left. So instead of that 6'4", would have been that 6'5".
Yep, that's true.
And moved up the court and gotten that, and then he probably would have gone to guard.
Interesting.
You would have gone to guard because you already had McHale. You already had all that. So it's like by itself. So, I mean, just looking at all the bad luck the Celtics got after that 86 title, you just think about that. But the biggest thing about Bill Walton, I wish he wouldn't have had all of those injuries, which a lot of them were non-impact injuries.
Yeah.
I wish he didn't have the bad luck. And it's the same as Arvydas Sabonis. I love an intellectual player. I like someone. It's like I like someone that can be able to take, and just outthink you.
Play mind games, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that they can do that. And I love a player, and it's like when you have a non-impact injury or getting anything like that, it just shows your body's built bad. And it's the unfortunate part because Bill Walton, I don't think he even had 10,000 points for his career. He just did not play a bunch.
I don't think he either.
Yeah, he didn't play, but he was. If he would have played longer, he'd be one of the greatest centers of all time. The intellectual side of it. So like I said, Shaq would have overpowered him, but it would have been the same. It would have been the same intellectual game, like the intellectual of Sabonis versus Shaq. It would have been the same.
Just kind of like, with Shaq versus Elijah one out-techniqued him, Elijah one outsmarted him. Because that's the thing. You're not going to overpower Shaq. That's just not going to happen. It's just like, do I attempt to knock down this wall or go around it? And when Shaq got beat, because they went around that wall, right? But Bill Walton is one of the big what ifs, because even with his injury history, he still managed to make the Hall of Fame. Go
ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say again. He still managed to make the Hall of Fame. So just imagine how much up the rung if he were healthy. Like, wow, you played a little over half the time, you still made the Hall of Fame. Just testament to how good the man was.
I think about how strong these players are now. Like I said, think of Joel Embiid. Think of Embiid. Think about Jokic. Think about this. See, they're smarter in one way. They're smarter in one way. It's like if they would have gotten a Shaq of now who did get fat, especially in LA, if they would have gotten that now, well, as much as Shaq would have had the same game and he would have done his own overpowering, they would have. See, everybody else kept trying, even though they don't get overpowered. Other than Elijah one, they kept trying to go through him and they get the butt kicked. These guys would just wear him out. Yeah. They would watch how fat he is, and they would just wear him out until he'd be sucking wind. Just because they wouldn't be trying. As I said, a guy like Embiid isn't a powerhouse. I mean, he's big, but he's not going to play powerhouse ball like that. He's just going around you, and he would just worn Shaq completely out.
Yeah.
It's a different. I think by itself, as I said, I talk about the type of footwork and speed now is completely different from that. And I'm not saying that Shaq wouldn't get his numbers. He, of course, would, especially of the now who doesn't play defense. But the high-end players, the big-time, like the Embiids and all these guys now, they're just going to go around. Yeah. They're not going to go try to think, and they're just going to make him suck wind. He would have had to have stayed Orlando Shaq the whole time.
True.
Yeah.
He would have had to have like 315 or so. He couldn't have gained to 380 or 90. Not on this thing. They would have just get a win. What do you think of that? What do you think of that, Will?
No, I agree 100%. I agree 100% with what you said.
Yeah, it's like they would have made it. I mean, it's one of those deals where the kind of shape that somebody's in right now. Sucking, I mean, by itself, he'd have to stay 315 Shaq the whole time because he could not suck he could not go 380, 390 anymore. They would just plaster him now.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Shaq when he first came in, when he was like 296, 300 pounds, like around there, Yeah. Lakers Shaq was still absolutely dominant, and Shaq's footwork they don't talk about enough because he absolutely had like immaculate for a man his size. He had immaculate footwork.
He started fast breaks.
Of course,
he dribbled the ball down the court.
Yeah, taking the ball up court, like I mean, you looked at somebody like him, and it's like he's not supposed to be doing that. You know what I mean? It's just crazy because just imagine if he would have put a little bit more effort in the defense, if he would have taken himself a little bit more seriously, how much greater he could have been. But I mean, it's not taking nothing away from Shaq. He definitely is a top 5 all time.
He would have taken it seriously, he probably would have had more of those 15 block games.
Yeah, that is true. So I'm going to swing it over to our next topic, and that is, and I kind of thought of this one on the fly, greatest coaching mistake in NBA playoff history. If you had more than one, that's fine, because I've got more than one. Well, I got one, and I got an honorable mention, but my honorable mention, this actually doesn't get talked about, but after the 1994 NBA Finals, they asked Coach Pat Riley about his about Game 7, and he said that his biggest regret was not starting Rolando Blackman over John Starks in Game 7. Me personally, I think it would have been the same result. You had that series-saving block in Game 6. Game 7 was back in the Summit. The Rockets had the momentum. I think it's the same result. But Pat Riley did admit that. I guess he didn't give Rolando Blackman as much of a shot as he should have. But undoubtedly, my greatest coaching mistake in NBA playoff history was 2013 NBA Finals Game 6. Popovich takes out Tim Duncan. I'm watching it live, and I'm like, what are you doing? I will say to this day, he doesn't take him out. The Spurs win 2 straight against the Heat.
Yep.
It's 19.2 seconds to go. Kawhi Leonard to the line. He's only 22 years old. He muffs the free throw, right? They took Tim Duncan out and put in Boris Diaw, and I'm like, you took your best rebounder out. Like, what are you doing? And then the rest was history. Quite possibly the greatest shot in NBA Finals history. The Heat go on to win it after another game-saving block, series-saving block. Danny Green by Chris Bosh, who we alluded to earlier. Goes to Game 7. LeBron puts up a triple-double, and it's over with. But undoubtedly, the biggest coaching mistake in playoff history. Like the Spurs, if they don't do that, the Spurs have 6 instead of 5. But I want to swing it over to Will. Who do you have, or what do you have as the greatest mistake in NBA playoff history? Greatest coaching mistake.
So this isn't like a scheme or substituting anyone out. You're going to laugh. A fight broke out in the 1998 playoffs between the Heat and the Knicks.
I remember that.
And the players were Alonzo Mourning, who was 6 foot, 240 pounds, and Larry Johnson, who was 6'7", 250 pounds. And then all of a sudden, Knicks coach Jeff Van Gundy's like, I'm 5'9" and 150. I'm going to try and break up this fight. Not a good idea, coach. You are a lot shorter than them. They are grown men playing NBA basketball.
Was he 5'9" even?
I'm sorry?
Was he 5'9" even?
I don't know. Probably not. But anyway, this guy couldn't sit. It was like Yao Ming compared to Earl Boykin size. Like big man against the tiny dude. But honestly, he tried to break up the fight. Then he was forced to the ground, and he grabbed Mourning's leg, and it caused many suspensions to be happening. But if you're a coach that small, especially, because most coaches are smaller than their players, or should be, or most often than not, if you're that small and you're trying to break up a fight between Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson, 2 hard-nosed players back then, good luck. Because you are not breaking up a fight between those two, especially in a heated playoff series. And you're a coach saying, okay, back it up. No, you're going to get killed out there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And one thing about everyone talks about Madison the Palace, which is regarded like a top 5 brawl of all time. But people hardly bring up the Knicks because that wasn't the only one. The Heat Knicks had a legit rivalry in the late 90s, and it was, I ain't gonna lie, it was beautiful. But
All
hey,
I'm
like,
saying is Van Gundy should not have put his nose in there.
no, absolutely not. Swinging it over to Jacob, who do you have, or what do you have as the greatest head coaching mistake in NBA playoff history?
I'm going to go Stan Albeck for the Bulls. It would have killed the 63 points historic game by the Jordan, but not starting George Gervin with Michael Jordan in a playoff game. But it's Gervin's last year, mind you. But yeah, it would have killed. It would have. But Michael, a lot of Michael's 63. He had to remember he only lost 135, 131. Just any other help. And they had Oakley. They had that. But I'm like, Oakley's underneath. Any other shooter, they probably steal that game. And it's like, and that is my thing with this is like everybody got during the early Jordan era where he changed the game. They got enamored with his game, with his one-on-one. They got enamored with that, watching him just fly in the air, the gliding, all that. They, just making all those shots, being unreal. They got all that stuff. They didn't even think about it. It's like you don't even think about the Granville Waiters and Kyle Macy are playing.
Yeah.
You don't think about that, and they're nowhere. Come on, you think those guys are going to beat Dennis Johnson and Robert Parrish?
No.
Granville Waiters could barely shoot he could barely shoot from 10 feet. He'd rim it right off the front. So it's like you had nothing. My whole thing was I'll even say through the year, another shooter. But Michael was getting power already. He was getting power already. He wanted it all. He wanted it all during that time, and he just wanted to be able to show off his. And it's like the biggest thing was you got to remember the year after they also lost 3-2, 3 in a row. So it's like there's a way. See, they always got their butt kicked in Chicago Stadium. The Celtics were winning by 20, but in the Boston Garden, they just had close game after close game after close game that they lost. And all they needed was another shooter. Even if it wasn't the 63-point game, they needed another shooter there. The thing to be able to get. I mean, they lose by 4 and 5 points. All you need is another one. And so, to me, it's just getting enamored at the early Jordan.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, there may be a lot of Jordan stands out there that will be against it, but looking at from the grand scheme of things, you're like,
40.
You might have won the game.
He still would have gotten 40, but I'm just saying you just need another guy.
Yeah, true. Very, very, very true. But ultimately, you probably got a better chance at winning the game had they had that one more shooter. Because they were close games. We talk all the time about how Jordan couldn't get out the East. What Jordan stands don't want to talk about is how he couldn't get out the East in the 80s. It was they don't want to hear it. They close their ears off whenever we say Jordan got dominated by the Celtics. He just did. Yeah. He just did. He got dominated by the Celtics.
Well, he was 1-9 to start his. He was 1-9
to start his career. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, 1-9 to start his playoff career. So it's like, yeah, he couldn't get out of the East. It was 1-9, and then the next time he didn't get out the second round until it was 89 when he finally, got to a Eastern Conference final. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then once he, it's like once he made the NBA Finals, it was like, okay, yeah, that's it. And we talked about that Lakers team. That Lakers team was on its way out. Yeah. That Lakers team was on its way out.
David Rivers off the bench. I mean, they were heading out. I mean,
they were.
Yeah, they were. James Worthy was getting old. He was already when when James Worthy's old when he's got the old bicycle glasses instead of his goggles.
Yeah. Well, now, not to mention that Lakers team limped to the NBA Finals. They were injury plagued. They're running into a pre-prime to prime Bulls. Oh, yeah. It is no secret who was going to win that series,
Yeah.
Because, it essentially was the same story. Okay, so you remember when the 2007 NBA Finals, right? And it was the Cavaliers and the Spurs.
Yeah.
And the question before then was, could LeBron get to the finals? Everyone knew he wasn't beating the Spurs, But the question was, could he get to the finals? And he answered that question. So then when he went back to the NBA Finals, it was like, all right, can he win? So now you look at Jordan, and it's like, all right, he finally got to the finals. You know, it just so happened that he won on his first try, which is great. You know, which was awesome.
And Will,
But,
let me ask you
what?
this: you think that there would have been any chance at all whatsoever if you would have thought? I mean, just thinking about this, you're younger than obviously. You know what I'm saying? How old are you right now, Will?
28.
Okay, so that's 15, 16 years. Okay, you were a teenager, nearing it. You think? Did you think that LeBron was going to have a chance in that series at all?
No, because I'll just say why real quick. He didn't have much help on that team. You had Daniel Gibson, you had Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Larry Hughes, Lamont. These are second-rate players. And you're going against a three-headed monster plus another monster with Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Bruce Bowen. Like, that team was loaded. Like, and they were in there. Like, sure, Duncan won a ring years before with David Robinson, but no way. I knew.
No.
I thought they could have at least stolen maybe one game if LeBron dropped 60 plus, but no, that Spurs team wanted revenge from when they lost to the Pistons a few years ago, and they said, "Hey, this ain't the Pistons, but we want a title shot. We want to win this one," and they did. I remember watching. They absolutely owned the Cavaliers that series. Cavaliers had no shot. I think personally, I remember seeing LeBron go off the court and he looked dead.
Yeah.
It was only his fourth year. It was only his fourth year in the NBA. This is fourth year LeBron.
Yeah. I think LeBron knew what he was up against, but you said it, Will. What happened in that series was what was supposed to happen. The Cavaliers did not win a game. That was what was supposed to happen.
You see, you're getting my point. You're making my point, Will, on something. It's why I get absolutely angry. Never at Justin Fields. Okay, we're going to go into football for 1 second here. It's not at him. You talk about getting tired and looking exhausted, looking like Rocky Balboa in the 15th round. That was LeBron during that time, which is why you get frustrated that he takes so many breaks down, gets all that, you know? You knew that there was a dog in him like that. You know what I'm saying? You knew. It's what and I'm just bringing that, like we were talking about this, Jay, like we were talking about this. I know JF has dog in him. I'm not blasting him personally, but I'm the one that saw what they were about to do to Cam Newton if he came to Chicago. And they were going to do that same crap to him, to treat it like a rock star, like a Michael Jackson concert.
Yeah.
And not care about the deal. Meanwhile, you're in your third year and you're 5-20 and you have one shot left, considering how much they have given him already. It's one shot left. You give them that much, and they're going to have a bunch of primetime games. He's got one shot, and it didn't have to be this way. It's why
and you know what? I'll say right now, real quick. They were. Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. They played the Orlando Magic in the Eastern Conference Finals, right?
Who
Cavs.
Cleveland? I believe so. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, LeBron got a lucky bank-in game winner. I think that was either then or a year before. But let's just I know it's like rookie or Dwight, but I think the Cavs could have easily lost that series if not for LeBron. Easily.
See, and that's where you get from. So I brought that up with Justin. That's where you get mad at LeBron, because that's where I do get mad at also. It's, the dog is in them at times. But I'll tell you this, Denzel and Will and everybody.
Oh, it was the Pistons, Will. They beat the Pistons.
Yeah. Oh, I thought
Okay, I don't
Orlando.
even. I think he was mentally. I remember he was mentally fatigued after that series. Because you got Dustin Phillips, Rick Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Ben Wallace. Yeah.
Yeah, the Magic did make the playoffs, but they were swept by Detroit, the same guys you mentioned in the first round.
I think my anger, or all of ours, toward LeBron is the fact that especially, I mean, you're 40 yourself, Jay. You're 40 yourself. We grew up with guys that had the dog 24/7, 365, every minute of every time. I mean, even when they went fishing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we didn't. It's hard for us to think of somebody that takes the dog down a little bit.
Right.
Yes.
You know, and it doesn't. That has it when they want it, and it does. I mean, and it's like it drives us nuts when we see it. So there's just, and it's like, and we'll just say that part, and it's like, so yeah, that's where you get a little mad at LeBron. He does take the dog down. He has the ability to keep bringing it, but he obviously brings it down to Jay Cutler levels.
Hmm.
You know, he does that because he obviously doesn't want to put the same deal in as the same Eye of the Tiger, and that's where, because we grew up with the dog 24/7. That's what the people we watched.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, last but not least, real quick around the horn. Let's see. Our last topic. Anthony Davis in the late game free throw woes. Now, Jacob, you actually shared this tweet. So we're gonna cover it really quick. Your reasons for sharing this tweet and for, well, we're talking about it on the show now.
And Will, you can agree with me on this. 15 feet away, nobody guarding you. Maybe you're a little tired, maybe it's late game, but shouldn't you be a pro that should be able to switch that? You know, to be able to switch these, you know, and be able to get to that. I mean, and it's like at some point it's psychological. At some point you just do not believe in yourself because he's front rimming and back and bouncing. It's not like he's getting him in and out. He's front rimming, bouncing, all that kind of stuff, going off the back. He's hitting it too hard, then he's making up for it. He's not even coming, and it's like,
I don't even think he practices them. Doesn't even look like he practices them.
And you know something? That's an AAU problem. I mean, maybe he's from the time, but that's an AAU problem, Will. That is. It's like where you got to go. It's like you got to remember you're not going to your techniques. You're not going to anything. And then if you're not practicing, it's
most
like
guys. The thing that sickens me is I learned this from basketball camp. I'll say this real quick. Don't end on a miss because, like even with jump shots or 3-point shots or free throws, especially, don't end on a miss because then they'll mess your psyche up. If you like pretend you make, like you take 10 free throws and you end on a miss, you're just like, okay, I'm done. I'm tired. No, and on a make because then that'll stay in your head and then give you more confidence.
Mm-hmm.
and the
I
thing
made that last free throw.
you can tell he doesn't practice them because anybody that's practiced them, he'd be on the court after the game shooting 100, 200, 300.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
he used to shoot in the high 70s, low 80s free throw percentage. Now he's like in the low 70s. And the Lakers are 19th in free throw percentage in the NBA, bottom half.
See, there's where you got to remember, LeBron creates these teams.
Yeah.
LeBron creates these teams. So, and then here's the thing: where is the standard? Where's the standard?
True.
It's like, where is the standard for these teams? If he's creating them, forget the GM right now. When you go to that thing, forget the GM, forget all that. You know, Kobe had a standard,
Right.
Yeah.
You better. I mean, I can say this part right off the spot. Even though they did not win a whole bunch. I can say this part right now. You didn't see anywhere near as many missed free throws with him around.
No.
It's like maybe they were frustrated. Maybe they were tired of him. Maybe they were looking at that. But there was, even when they were losing, remember he was on that talk show and they were all celebrating that one win and he just about wanted to kill them.
Yeah.
That was the first win in 11 games. And he was just, and it's like you don't see LeBron with that standard I was bringing. You don't see it with that.
Yeah.
It's like this happened last year too. This happened last year also. Like, you know, even missing the play-in game, which that's supposed to be the easiest part to get. And this is the star, the man, the everything. They might do this again. They might lose it again. So there's got to be, like with these free throws, and I can say that, Will, you can agree with this. there's got to be a standard. There's
Yeah,
got to be.
it does.
LeBron doesn't have.
It does, and this is coming from a Braun fan, myself. But I looked at a clip one time, and it was Robert Ory. I'll say this, and then we got to end the show. And it was Robert Ory saying like the problem. I guess they were talking about the biggest problem with the Lakers. But he brought up a very interesting point. He said the problem is that nobody fears the Lakers. No one fears the Lakers. It used to be a point in time when it was Kobe, Shaq, Ori, Fisher, all of them, that people feared playing LA, But now they just don't, despite LeBron being there, despite AD being there and whatnot. He's like, yeah, they get a lead, they start doing antics and smiling and whatnot. But just like you said with Kobe, everybody remembers his infamous "jobs not finished" clip, right? Like, what are we celebrating for? We don't have the trophy in our hand yet. So you're onto something, is that there has to be a certain standard. You have to make players fear playing you again.
I have a question for you, Denzel. You are the LeBron fan because we can only see it all the time on Facebook and everything. you are the LeBron fan. And I'm just this. You don't have to agree with me. You can't agree with me or whatever. Why do you think and this has not been like the last couple of years. It's been things. Why do you think he lost that? Because he's getting 30 points a game, so that's what I'm asking.
My answer is going to be more on the culture and less LeBron. Part of it is load management.
Okay.
It just started becoming a thing. Don't get me wrong, LeBron is a trendsetter, but at the end of the day, people adapt to the culture, right? They adapt to the culture. And if the standard back, during the Bird, Magic, Jordan days was you play 82 or as close to 82 as possible, right? Now I'm watching Lakers Rockets the other night, right? And the Rockets won a close one, and Davis is in street clothes. The first thing I'm thinking is don't get me wrong, I'm glad we won the game, but the Lakers are currently in the play-in. And this typically it's the Rockets, okay? It's the hapless Rockets. We're a young rebuilding squad. This should be an easy W if at least AD plays. You can have one of the two play, AD or LeBron, and you'll win that game, even if both of them were at like half power, right? But it's these games you're supposed to win that are going to help you down the stretch. The Lakers need to get into the play-in to even have a shot. They need to get into the play-in. In order to stay there, they got to win the games they're supposed to win. This is how you lose to a Houston. This is how you lose to a bottom team. You know what I mean? And you find yourself in danger of dropping out or whatever, These are the games you need. I'm sitting here like, dude, if AD plays, they probably win that game. So in answering your question, I think a lot of it is actually load management, in which I don't feel the need that he needs to do it because we're talking about the most physically fit man in the NBA. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
We're talking about the most physically fit man in the NBA. Doesn't have a long injury history. Always the most durable man in the last 20 years, right?
Oh, even with me saying how I'm just saying I'm agreeing with you. Even with me saying the guy has the pain tolerance of an 8-year-old girl, he does. But as far as his durability, you cannot deny it. You can't. Rolls around. He just complains like Trump. He just complains like Trump when he gets hit or something. But I'm like, but I'm just saying it doesn't mean he's not durable.
But to answer your question, I agree with you. But it's less LeBron and more the culture. LeBron didn't start load management, but he did adapt to it and used it to his advantage.
Will, I want to say to you, do you have a different thing you would think? Do you blame LeBron, or what do you think happened to him in the midst of it all?
I think I'm gonna go real quick because I think we need to end it. But it's the time we live in right now. It's the time we live in, load management, unfortunately.
No, okay. I'll ask both of you. Do you think a Bird or a Jordan or a Magic would have adapted to load management? Or do you think their personalities would have just kept going?
They have stronger personalities than even LeBron. Jordan's outright stubborn. Bird is outright stubborn. There's no way in hell they would be one of maybe 5 players that have been like, nope, I'm playing every game. Yeah. You got to think, you know what I mean? And that's not saying nothing bad about LeBron. You know what I mean? It's just that Jordan would have been, I'll put it to you like this. You said the 63-point game, right? Mm-hmm. Now, remember, wasn't that the same year he broke his foot? And the owner came down and told the coach, if he plays 1 minute over X amount of minutes, you're fired. You're gone. Right? But Jordan demanded to be in the game. That's how stubborn Jordan was. That's how stubborn Bird was. That's how stubborn Magic was. So they would have been one of the 5 players of this time period that have been like, nope, I'm doing my own thing. I'm going to play. So,
and probably been the most popular in the league, to be very honest.
Yeah. But it's a gift and a curse. With these players from the 80s, we revere them for having that dunk, but then and it's the same with football because they coming out with like long-term, ailments and whatnot. So at some point, where do you find a happy medium? We grew up on championship boxers like Hearns, Hagler, like 3 of the greatest rounds you'll ever see. We talked about this, Jacob, right? You know what I mean? But the boxers we grew up on, they're coming out, like head cases now, right? Then you look at a Floyd Mayweather, and of course it's like, oh, well, he runs. Well, the dude, his strategy has actually helped kind of save his life, and you got to respect that, right? So, it's essentially like, okay, well, would Floyd Mayweather have survived in like the 1980s and whatnot? If you give him his speed and defense now, yes, he would have.
Oh no, even more so. Here's the biggest difference, and we will wrap up after that. The biggest thing about it is Hagler would have caught him because he had the same fist speed. But it's like overall though, with all of everybody wanted to swing 100 times, so his defense would have come even better. Yeah,
but I will say this much. You said Hagler, right?
Yes.
You say Hagler, and I'll raise you one. Duran probably would have dropped him.
Well, their fist speed was just out of this world. You know what I'm saying? Well,
true.
The reason why Duran's of stone.
Yep. Well, anyway, we better get on going because we've gone past. We enjoy all this. We enjoyed you tonight, Will. Good job tonight.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, shout out to Will Vogel, man. He was a little bit under the weather, and he still found a way to, to join us. So thanks a lot, and we will be back next Sunday with a fresh new episode. Got a couple of more games on the way for March Madness, so be sure to enjoy that. Also, hit that like and subscribe button to Sideline Sports because what you see tonight, we bring to you every Sunday. So for Will Vogel, Jacob Christner, and shout out to Scott Morganrath. He's a tad bit under the weather too. So get well soon. We'll see you next week. And Dom, shout out to him too. He's at the Pistons game. So I'm pretty sure he'll be back with great commentary. But I am Denzel Snipes. And you know what? Screw an exit video. We're out.